a lot has been spoken about Manchester City, and their strengths and weaknesses have been analyzed. But in the course of the entire Champions League season that we've had, not too many people have actually sat down and analyzed Inter, that closely. Because to be honest, I don't think anyone expected Inter to be where they are right now, or the fact that there were two Italian clubs, going up against each other in the semi-finals. But if you talk about Inzaghi and one of the formations which he plays really well, the 3-5-2, if you see what he's sort of managed to do, there was a time when Inter dropped out of the top four in the Serie A. They went on, I think it was a 6-match winless streak, and then he sort of reverted back to his counter-attacking move of play. And what the 3-5-2 allows him to do is obviously, tie up the central defenders. And if you can do that, he has, so many he has 4 different kinds of forwards to pick from. Do you think that, I'm going to put that question to both you, Terry, and to Mark, because I want both your opinions on this. Do you think that is going to be perhaps the biggest hurdle for Guardiola to cross tactically? They're both obviously at the drawing boards right now, figuring out strategies. But something like this where, you don't know who Inzaghi is going to pick, or maybe he does, I don't know. But he picks, the forwards depending on who he's playing. So do you think that tactically is going to be a big challenge?
I personally think tactically he's still going to go to 3-5-2. The two up front is going to be Martinez and Dzeko, as it has been for a long period of time. I think it won't be such a 3, it'll be more of a 5, because if Manchester City dominate possession like they did against Real Madrid, then you can't see Inter Milan getting out of their own half. And it's going to be 45 minutes of defensive wise, and it's a case of, does he put Dumfries as a right back or a right-sided, because he's more offensive, and on the other side you've got Gosens and you've got DiMarco, where are they going to play? So I think he'll be looking Inzaghi to nullify, basically. It's going to be very defensive play from them, and as we see it in, I think it was the semi-final where they had to, or the quarter-final where they had to get a result, and 0-0 it was in the end, and they managed to keep a clean sheet. I think this is going to be their thinking, and maybe if they can counter-attack at times. But as I say, this is all about Man City and how they go about the game. If they go about the game the way they did against Real Madrid in the first half, the second leg, then this is going to be a long day, long evening for Inter Milan, and they need to be defensively right on top of the game. And the 3 centre halves will probably be Bastoni, Acerbi, and maybe one of De Vrij or Skriniar in there. So it's an experienced back 3. But then when you look at what they've got to defend against and the goals that they have in all of them, whether it's Mahrez plays or Bernardo Silva, Haaland's going to play, Grealish is now playing at the top of his form. So it's going to be, for me, it's going to be a really interesting way how they're going to set out. If they set out defensively, then it's going to be a 90-minute job of trying to just keep them out, and then maybe win on pens or whatever it is. And that's going to be very difficult against a team who continually pass the ball from side to side. And as Terry will say to you, eventually your limits of fitness will fail. And then at that point, that's when mistakes happen. So that's the way I think I see him playing it, because I don't think he's got any other way. If he goes at Manchester City, glove for glove, then they're going to come out, and it will be I think this is one of the most lopsided finals I've seen in the Champions League in a long time. And I mean, if you look at the Italian league, they've done great. Roma is in the Europa League. You've got obviously Inter, AC Milan. We had Napoli as well. So it looks as though it's blooming there. But when you come up against a team with Manchester City like this, then it's going to be a long night for them.
I'll take on board what Mark has said there, and the formation is going to play. But let's be very honest with you. We've watched a lot of Italian football, me and Mark, over the years with so many sports, and we've commentated on a lot of games, individual players. But Inter Milan, over the course of the managers they've had, they've always seemed to be set up in a 3-5-2 situation, and I think that's a culture within the club now. Yes, Inzaghi did make a few tactical changes along the way, and it wasn't quite working in Serie A. You know, he did drop out the top four, which you've mentioned. He's reverted back now to this 3-5-2 system. My only concern is obviously wide areas, fullbacks being pushed back, which Mark is alluded to. But we've got to look at the midfield area. This is where Manchester City will look to win the battle of the game, because Manchester City like to overload that midfield area with a 4v3 situation. Now then, what does the opposition do? Did he pull their fullbacks in? Does one fullback come in and he leaves 4 at the back and he leaves spaces wide for Manchester City to exploit? That's going to be his biggest dilemma. He's got 2 up front against the 4. How does he cope with Manchester City's fullbacks? Especially if John Stone as a centre-back pushes in there, he's still got 3v2. So I think Inter Milan have got a lot of thinking to do. They've got mountains of thinking to do. Yes, they're going to drop into a low block when Manchester City has the ball. That's great. It's when Manchester City go back to front quickly up to Haaland, which they have been doing recently, and then runners have been going on. De Bruyne has been going on. Gundogan's been going on. And, you know, your wide men have been staying wide. So, for me, I wouldn't like to be a coach playing against Manchester City at this present time, because there's loads of situations which you have to think about. But you have to think about how you're going to play and how you're going to set up. And I do think, like Mark says, Inter Milan will set up in that system. They will look to drop. They will look to have a low block, obviously, in and around the 18-yard box. They stop the supply to Haaland's feet, maybe double up in the wide areas, which they're capable of, because, hey, Inter Milan haven't got a bad midfield and all, but my worry is, can they cope with Manchester City's overload in that 4v3 in the midfield areas?